tell us why you wanted to speak out, why you want to talk about what happened and what is happening on Manus Island.
I think it's important, after spending time there, I think it's important that the Australian public gets as much information as they can about what is being done in Manus Island, what is happening up in Manus Island, so that they can make a proper informed decision about whether their support for the current asylum seeker policies that we have.
And what is it you want them to know? I mean, just in general terms, what is it that you want them to know?
Well, I want them to know that, I understand this is a difficult issue for everyone. It's a difficult issue, I think, for most Australians to get their head around. I think most people understand the drama, the dilemmas that we have with people arriving by boat and the deaths that occurred when that was happening. And I think most Australians want that stopped. I also understand why Australians feel that, have the feeling that there is a queue jumping, if you like, for people that arrive by boat. And I understand all those feelings, and I don't necessarily disagree with the need to have policies to deter people smugglers and to make sure we have an orderly process. What I feel after being on Manus Island is that what we are doing up there is too much, and regardless of what your beliefs are, regardless of what you believe about the policies of the previous government or this government, what is going on in Manus Island is cruel, unnecessarily cruel and wrong.
And why is that so? What is it about Manus Island that is cruel and unnecessarily cruel?
I think there's a number of factors. And when I say cruel, I don't mean people are deliberately being cruel. I think it's just a number of factors. I think Manus Island is the wrong place to begin with, and even people from PNG, some PNG workers there who have come from other parts of PNG have said that they feel that Manus Island was the wrong place for this detention centre. Manus Island is a long way from any support. It's a very remote part of PNG, even given the remoteness of PNG in its own right. Manus Island is even more remote. There's limited resources, very limited resources. The local hospitals are very limited in what they can provide, and they don't have the necessary infrastructure in place to deal with an influx of an extra 2,000 or so people. Now, people will say, okay, yeah, but we're investing and we're developing, which is true. Part of this process was that we're going to invest and develop. But I have, apart from the concerns about the needs of the refugees and the way that we can be treated, one of the problems is that Manus Island is a reasonably poor part of PNG. There was limited opportunities and not a lot of employment on that island. This has provided employment, but the people there still aren't wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. So what you have is a situation where I believe that there's an inevitable frustration going to build up, whether it's on the behalf of the transferees or on behalf of the local PNG people. What I mean by that is, if you provide really good facilities and great services to the transferees, they will be better than what the local residents get. That's going to build resentment. If you try and make it worse, then you're going to build resentment in the transferees. That's why I believe that because of the location and the setup that we have there, it was inevitable that this was going to be the consequence.
Just about that inevitability, what was inevitable?
I'd say that within a week of arriving on Manus Island, I formed the opinion, and I made comments to my wife and people that I know, that there is only one possible outcome here, and that is bloodshed. There is no other possible outcome that can occur on this island than bloodshed. Inevitable, because you're taking away hope from people. I believed given the conditions, which were tough, they were hard on us, they were much harder on the transferees, that given that and the tension and the stress, the inevitable tension and stress, when you eventually take away any hope by saying, and by the way, you're never going to Australia, there's no guarantee of any third party, and probably the only outcome is going to be based in PNG, you take away hope. When people's hope is taken away, the consequences are inevitably going to be bad.
But is there something about this facility being on Manus Island in PNG that particularly points to a bloody outcome?
There was tension. There was always tension between the locals, and I don't want to make out that I'm, having a go at the PNG people here. I'm not.
We just want to know.
But the tension is there is inevitable tension. There is tension between a whole range of people there, and there are tensions between the fact that a lot of the transferees are Muslims and a lot of the PNG people are Christians. And I had PNG staff say to me that they were very concerned about that issue to start with, and they felt that they would struggle to fit in to PNG society. There's other issues where there was conflict between the transferees and the PNG locals. Plus, on top of that, it's a harsh environment. It's a very harsh environment. And the conditions were, for the transferees and for the staff as well, were very trying. There's a lot of illness and sickness up there. A lot of staff are sick as well from the living conditions and that. And the accommodation and the facilities in Manus Island just aren't suitable for the number of people that they have there. There is far too many people there for the facilities that they have. Those pressures inevitably build up as time goes on. Once you get to the point where you're told you're putting up with this, but there's nothing at the end of it, tensions are going to boil over. There's also, tensions build up because the transferees were, are fed reasonably well, given the conditions that the kitchen staff have to work in up there. And a lot of the PNG local people don't have a lot of money. Cost of rice, their staple up there, is very expensive. And they would get upset about the fact that transferees would get, steak 2 or 3 times a day, or not steak, but a meat dish of beef or fish or whatever. And they would see food going to waste, and they feel that the transferees are actually eating better and have more access to food than in some cases they do. So there's a bit of a tension there. But it's other things. Some people are just upset about the idea of this facility being on their island. We go through, it's an environmental catastrophe. Everything up there is disposable. Every plate, cup, knife and fork, every meal is a plastic plate, cup or fork. We're going through up to 6,000 plastic plates a day, knives and forks, cups, thousands of plastic bottles. Manus Island is not set up to deal with that, so it's just getting dumped in a big hole in the ground, and the island is being polluted. Locals spoke to me about their concerns about that, their island being spoilt by the Australian camp and the waste coming from that camp. So there's a whole range of issues there. And like I said, the trouble is if you improve the facilities for the transferees, potentially you're increasing the disparity between what the transferees have and what the average Manus Island person is able to afford and their lifestyle.
And what about explicitly racist attitudes, say, among the transferees, for instance, regarding the local population?
Yep, some transferees had a very, I would say, a sort of superiority complex or a superiority position about themselves compared to the PNG people because of the level of education that PNG people had. And so there was tensions a lot. I never saw it coming back the other way from PNG, the guards, when they worked. I never personally witnessed any of that type of thing going back. But I know that they felt quite often that they were being treated badly, given that it is their country. It's their island, Manus Island. And I know through talking to them that they felt they weren't given the proper respect for that. Prior to the incidents that happened up there was taunting of the local PNG people by some of the transferees who were the ones that were involved in some of the build-up to the riot, where they were using derogatory terms about PNG, talking about, sexual innuendo thrown out through the fence towards the PNG people. And I think that's what really, on those days where the violence occurred, I think that was what was really causing a great deal of concern and upset for the local PNG people particularly.
I think you've described the place as being built to fail. What do you mean by that? I said, but when I first got there and I looked at the way the place was run, I felt as if we were planning to fail. There was things there that I felt that could have been done
to alleviate some of the pressure and to bring the stress level down. And all the staff would talk about it. We would all talk about it. And I've had conversations where we'd say, this is either the greatest example of managerial incompetence I've ever seen, or it is a deliberate attempt to create an environment that is harsh and cruel. So we would always say there's got to be a better way, whether it was extending the meal hours so that people didn't have to line up for hours, improving the delivery system, having a better way of lining people up and checking them in. And yet it never occurred. Like it's almost impossible to believe, given the number of incidents and the amount of drama that meal lines caused every day, that at some point management didn't come and say, we've got to find a better way. Let's work it out. Officers would put in officers' reports daily. There's thousands of them asking for improvements. Now, I'm not necessarily criticising G4S management. G4S management's one part of that system. I know that they quite often went to the Department of Immigration and said, we need to do this. And, it has to go through a system. So I know it's also not easy for them. It's a difficult place to operate, Manus Island. But there are things there that were obviously going to cause problems.
Do you think, having been there, that it is a place that has been built to break people, it's designed to break people?
Look, I don't know what the intention was. I'm not sure what the intention was. But...
And what's the impression that you have? What is your honest belief?
The impression that I have is that the idea is to probably make it as hard as we can get away with. That would be the impression that I have. Because, like I said, there are things that could be done easily to improve the conditions for not only the transferees, but for us, for the workers that work there. Because when you make life a bit easier and take away a lot of those common stresses, you reduce the level of anxiety and the level of stress in the compound. Those things just weren't done. And as I said, there is only two possible options: incompetence or deliberate decision making. Now, I don't think the managers of G4S were incompetent. I know them, and a lot of them were trying to do the best that they could. But I think the process that involved for getting anything done on Manus Island, plus the fact that Manus Island is so remote and so difficult a place to do anything anyway, means that inevitably the conditions are going to be like they are. I think there is a deliberate decision to try and not make it too comfortable. That's for sure. But the conditions for people in there were appalling. It was absolutely appalling. The numbers, like I said, it probably wouldn't be too bad if there was a lot less people there. But in some of the compounds, you've got a couple of hundred people with 4 toilets, for example, that they all shower and 4 showers and 4 toilets, and they're appalling. The condition of them is, I used to nearly make me sick just walking past them, and we would quite often say, I don't know what I'd do if we had to use those facilities. They were just disgraceful. Now, those are the sort of things that you can get a demandable toilet block and put it in there, but we haven't, and we didn't, and it's been there for a long time. So, once again, that just comes around to, is that deliberate, or is that just because it takes so long to get anything done? I don't know.
Now, you said something about it being bad for everybody. You mean it's not just about the physical conditions, you mean it's bad for everybody in other ways?
Yeah. It's bad because I believe that most of the people up there, most of the expat people that worked up there, really do want to try and help and do the right thing and make things better. And I know there was massive frustration amongst staff because we sit and have the conversations about the inability to get simple things done, to get simple things fixed that would make life easier, that would make conditions a bit more humane and a bit fairer for people, and to look out for the people that weren't maybe the big and strong people in the compounds. And there were concerns about people that reports are being written, and it seemed to be that very little action was being taken. Now, it's not up to me to make comment about at what level those decisions weren't being made or or where decisions were being made about that. But I know that it caused angst and caused staff to feel upset a lot of the time about what was going on. Because, like I said, Nellie, everyone there's some great people up there. Some of the expats working up there were wonderful people who went out of their way to try and help and to resolve issues and to deal with people. They were trying their best to do it. And I believe that they felt at times, as I did, that there wasn't the level of support that should have been from higher, whether that was G4S management or the Department of Immigration, to implement those simple changes that would have improved conditions for everybody.
But what it is an effective deterrent to people getting on boats.
And as I've said before, I understand why people believe there's a need for a deterrent. I understand that Australians believe that we can't take 4.5 million Syrian refugees who are now being displaced from Syria. I understand that, and I understand the need for a deterrent. I'm not a person who's saying just let everyone in. I'm not a person who says there shouldn't be. I'm not even saying there shouldn't be offshore processing. I understand all that, and I know it's a difficult issue, and I'm not pretending that, hundreds of people didn't die trying to get here by boat. I've heard stories from refugees about what happens on that boat on the way over here. Horror stories about the way things that happen with people smugglers. They're not pleasant people, and we do need to stop them making money from it. All I'm saying to people is, given that, even accepting that we want to have a deterrent, even accepting that there may be things, this is wrong. What is going on here is wrong. And I believe that even people that are pro the current policies, and some people voted specifically for that issue. Okay, I understand that. But I believe that if most of those people went and sat for 6 weeks in Manus Island and spoke to those people, they would say, you know what, I still want a way of having a deterrent, but this is not right. This is not right. I'm not saying I know what the answers are. I've sat for many hours in Manus Island thinking, is there a way to have a compassionate system that acts as a deterrent? I'm sure that there must be. We must be able to work out a system. And we can still have a system that identifies people that aren't refugees and repatriates them or sends them home. I don't have a problem with that. But what I have a problem with is when we send a problem somewhere else and can't guarantee that those people are going to be safe. And as I've said, and as has been identified, despite the best efforts, and I've got to say that the Australian, particularly the Australian staff, I saw young guys and old guys and women up there who were doing heroic things. And I just want to make the point again that not every PNG person up there was involved in this. There was a lot of them, particularly the IRT guys under the guidance of the G4S expat staff, who were really trying hard to limit the violence and to stop the protesting so they could get back under control. So there was a lot of people doing a lot of good things. I just can't imagine any way that this is going to end well. And if you talk to people, most of them will say there's no good end game here. I understand the idea that if we're cruel for a short period of time, then we don't have to be cruel anymore. That's the message. How long do we think this is going to go on? Well, the question is, how long are they going to be there for? Well, we're not taking them. No one else. I can't imagine Canada or any of those other countries saying, we better take some of these refugees off poor old Australia, the richest country, but one of the richest countries on the planet, while there's poor countries with millions of refugees in them. So how long do we think we're going to keep this up? 5 years? 10 years? We're going to keep them in there for 5 years or 10 years? We've got to come up with a system that allows us to be strong, have our deterrent, make sure we identify real refugees from, economic refugees that people talk about, but do it in a way that is humane, fair and doesn't damage people. And when I say damage people, I mean transferees and us, because it hasn't been good for any of us, I don't think. I think everyone is suffering from the dehumanising of people.